Namaste and welcome, beloved mighty companions, to this holy circle of infinite light where we come together to see the truth of light, that we are light, and that there isn't anything other than light. Unless we decide that we want to pretend that there's something other than light and deny the light within, infinite, unchanging. So Jesus is helping us to focus our minds rather than on what isn't, to focus on what is, the truth, the light within. And then follow that light within and learn to listen and speak. Let the voice for God speak through us. So we recognize and we honor there's only one voice, and that's his voice, our voice, the voice for truth. There's no Jesus outside of us. We treat Jesus like it's some foreign object coming after us. And that's the play in consciousness. Like, why can't I hear Jesus? Because I want to hear every other voice but his. Every voice other than the one who knows that I'm innocent. So we ask Jesus to show us that voice. And that voice speaks through us throughout the day. We're just learning to really listen to it. We're learning how we've denied the voice, the play in consciousness to say no to who we really are. I can elect to change all thoughts that, I got popped back. It went backwards one. My holiness shines bright and clear today. Lesson 285. Jesus, will you show us? Jesus being the symbol, a symbol of the light within. See that the light has no words. Can we find a way for light to have words? Light doesn't have words. Does the light put labels on anything? So the whole function of the ego is to put a label on something and then it'd be fine if it just, a word itself, no single word does anything. When we invest in the charge and the desire to experience, it puts a charge. It's like putting a tag. It puts the I believe on a word. And you start to listen really carefully in consciousness to all the I believes, all the ways that we're abdicating true creative power to what does not exist. Lesson 285, my holiness shines bright and clear today. Today I wake with joy. How many days do we wake with joy? Muji says, this day is the best day ever. How many times can we recall in this lifetime waking up and just with this exuberant joy? Just a joy that's just pure, resonant, pure happiness for no reason. Not because we're going on a trip or we have something special planned. Just the resonance of pure being, celebrating itself. That's our power. Expecting but the happy things of God to come to me. Expecting the happy things. Jesus, is it okay to expect happy things of God? He says when you're playing with the ego, you're expecting the unhappy things of the ego. See, we're getting everything we're expecting. I'm expecting it to be horrible today. I'm expecting. Just the words we speak says what we're expecting. The water cooler talk at work, when the beings meet at the water cooler and go, you won't believe how bad a day I'm having. And the other one goes, I'm having a worse day than you. And then they're agreeing with each other, feeding, death feeding station. Not to pretend that we're happy when we're not. There's no function here. There's no benefit. I'm asking Jesus, you know that thing, fake it till you make it? No. The ego fakes it till it makes it. Just ask the light that. Does the ego try and fake things until it makes things? And can't. Happiness and joy can't be faked. Well, the ego will try to fake it and convince you that you're happy because. The ego is in an investment in the bank of happy because and sad because. Those are all the beliefs. I'm sad because. I'm suffering because. I'm in pain because. The decode, the Jesus decode of all the play. I can't because. I won't because. I would, but. Behind every but, a friend would say that. Behind every but is a limiting belief. Jesus decode. Here's to look to the clue. Then Jesus takes all of that because and goes, I am deciding not to be happy. I'm deciding that I won't be light. I am deciding that death is my only option. Every time we don't follow the Holy Spirit, that's the decision. I'm deciding death is my only experience. I'm deciding I won't see that I'm infinite light. I'm deciding that my holiness does not shine bright and clear today. Just through thought. The thought cloud kind of walking around and the little thunderstorm was here. Little thunderstorm of heart thought. No, I'm not. Why am I not awake yet? I am deciding not to be awake yet. Why am I still having to look at these thoughts? I am deciding that I want to keep these thoughts. Help me, Jesus, the best way. The only pill worth taking. Jesus, show me. The Jesus, show me where I'm wrong pill for the day. Pop that one in. Okay, Jesus. Show me where I'm wrong pill. Show me where I can have a miracle instead of the no to me, no to infinite, the yes to the me object being acted on. Today I wake with joy, expecting but the happy things of God to come to me. I ask but them to come. See, they need to be invited. Remember, again, code word ego. Why is this happening to me? Why am I not? So code word, ego asks why. Jesus asks, what are you? I'm not a body. What am I? That's the question worth asking. What? All the other ones, whens, wheres, wherefores. They're the deaths, they're the spiral into the Death Star. So we're asking. So God is merely a welcome mat for what's already here. Just check outside your door to see which welcome mat's out. Welcome mat to know to myself. Look at the front door of your being. Say, what am I welcoming? What am I calling to? The rabid dog, anger, frustration. What did I call and make the welcome mat for? Or is the welcome mat for infinite? Infinite, unchanging, timeless being. And to get there, So we have to put the welcome mat for the one who knows to tell us where we've been having a habit and putting the welcome mat out for hell, basically. What's my welcome mat out today? And to go check the front door. Jesus, which welcome mat do I have? We know because we're not happy. And then we can tell which welcome mat's out there. I'm not awake. I'll never wake up. I'll never hear Jesus. I can't hear Jesus. I won't hear Jesus. I'm not awake. I choose not to see that I'm already awake, that it already happened. That's the code. So here's the invitation. I realize my invitation will be answered by the thoughts to which it has been sent to me. So the thoughts that are arising are based on our invitation for the thoughts. Why am I feeling like attacked? Invitation to thought. Thoughts, believed, emotions, experience. Perception. So as we look with these desires, the energetic investment below all of this, and release it, nothing can arise. Thoughts start falling away. When we're no longer laying out the welcome mat for death thoughts, the Death Star thoughts, and decide that the only thoughts worth having is the ones he gives. My holiness shines bright and clear today. Jesus, do I have any desire to deny the thoughts of God that you give me in these lessons? Any desire in there? Any disbelief? See disbelief that my holiness shines bright and clear today. Any desire not to have an experience where my holiness shines bright and clear? Anything other than perfect peace, perfect innocence. So beautiful. We watched Bagger Vance last night, Perfect Innocence. What a great reflection of how innocence gets through. Juna doesn't want to play golf anymore, but what he really doesn't want to play is infinite. That's what we don't want to play. We want to play other than infinite. So he seems to lose his golf game because he goes to World War One. Look, those are World War One. And his entire battalion or group that he was with, his plan was to be a hero and lead into war. Can you see where that heads? The hero of the dream is the leader into war in the mind. Now the spirit can use that and transform that. Actually, that was the intent here when I went into the prison. I was the kind of hero with the dream. Jesus fixed that relatively quickly to see that salvation was there. To attempt to get salvation through being a hero of a dream, it's impossible. That's the play. I can save the world. The whole idea that the world can be saved through something happening in form and the light of divine being and honesty of God. Can the world be saved through a change in form? See, it's an attempt to change the changeless. I want to change the world. Code word. I want to change, have an experience of changing the changeless. I want to try and attempt to change what can never be changed. And when we go into that movement of wanting to change something, it's like we're stapling ourselves to movement. And then we're going to feel guilt. So now he's wrong because his battalion didn't make it, or whatever the group he's with doesn't make it. He's wounded, quote unquote. And he comes home and everybody thinks, oh, he's wounded. Is he wounded, or did he merely make a decision, the decision to deny who he is, to forget who we are? It doesn't happen when you go to war that you get wounded. It happens when you make a decision in mind that you're anything other than infinite, unchanging light. Ask the light that. Is it a decision in my mind to go to war with myself? The war is always within. The war is not on the screen. That's the light. And light of divine being and honesty of God is the war on the screen of consciousness, or the decision in mind to say no to divinity. Viktor Frankl is a great example of that. In the concentration camp, made a different decision to be at peace. God is in everything I see. Yes, even in a concentration camp, even at war. To find God in war and to express divinity right in the middle of a war zone. Hacksaw Ridge, superb movie for seeing one who makes a decision to follow the Lord in the middle of, what a great movie that is for seeing that even when, quote unquote, the idea of hell breaks loose, to stay so true to divine light that you change everyone. He had his whole battalion are praying in the end of that. They're all praying. That's the power of following the light. So Juno thinks he's lost his ability to play golf. It's not about golf, but God uses these metaphors and sends in his mighty angel in the form of a 12-year-old who saw more charity, through charity, saw more in Juno than he saw in himself. You can do this. That's what we are here for, our brother, to reflect, to stand in the light and call and say, you can do this. Because all the reflections in the world can't do it. You can't do it. You can't be divine. So we merely come together to invite the divine light in and let that shine through us. And the whole movie's about how to let divine light shine through beautifully, beautifully. It's not the game of golf we're learning to play, but the spirit can use that, the world's game, to retranslate it in the way so we can see how to express his divine infinite being. And I will ask for only joyous things the instant I accept my holiness. Jesus, will you please help remind me today to ask for only joyous things. Accept my holiness, to accept my holiness. And see how we need the light's help. Do we need the light's help to accept our holiness? Since the light is our holiness, to accept the light within. For what would be the use of pain to me? What purpose would my suffering fulfill? And how would grief and loss avail me if instantly departs from me today and I accept my holiness instead? And that was just shown on that gore. Every time he would accept his holiness, you can see it, you can feel it. Holiness is merely focusing on what's true. What's already here. Is holiness already here? Let's ask the light, of what use is pain? What use does pain have to the light? Can we find a use? Can we find a way pain is valued by infinite light? Can we find a purpose for suffering in the light of divine being? Does suffering have a purpose? Infinite light, can it find a purpose for suffering in there? Those things only serve the ego's purpose. Let's ask the light that. In the light of divine being and honesty of God, does pain serve to say no? When we have pain, is that making a welcome mat to no to divinity and hear the light? Yet will the light help us see through that illusion? Is it possible in the light of divine being to see through the illusion of pain? Jesus says, cease to welcome it. See that divine light doesn't have pain and cease to welcome pain. It's just a habit of hitting the snooze button. Let's ask the light, is pain a habit of hitting the snooze button? But we think it's so real, we think it has to be. Does pain have to be? We can ask divine light that. Is that natural to us? It's a decision. It's decision to keep the inner war going. What purpose would my suffering fulfill? What purpose does suffering fulfill for divine light? Can we find it? Can we find that in innocence? And how would grief and loss avail me? In the divine light, is the divine light innocence itself? Is divine light original? We're looking at the original state of being, who we are. The light, infinite divine light. See if light has a purpose for which it can use grief. So we ask each day, Jesus, will you show me any desire I have to keep grief as a denial of who I am? The welcome mat to grief. Ask the light, does grief only appear if I lay out the welcome mat for grief? Show me where I'm laying out the welcome mat for grief. Show me where I'm laying out the welcome mat for suffering. The welcome mat to be deluded about who I am. And loss. Show me where I'm laying out the welcome mat to loss. I'm willing to see it. The desire for that experience below my level of awareness. We can spend time with Jesus, and if something rings a bell, it's like, oh yes, I do want loss. I am experiencing that. Show me the desire for it so I can release it to you. Jesus is willing to take us down underneath all these desires for loss. Just be with him and just let that energy release through miracles. The energy, the welcome mat, the miracle melts the welcome mat away. It's to shine, to show that there's a play. It's a play. We want to go and play, and we want to leave that welcome mat out so we don't see that we're the light. What purpose would my suffering fulfill, and how would grief and loss avail me if instant insanity departs from me today? Jesus, is there any desire below my level of awareness to keep insanity in play? And I'll tell you. Okay, Jesus, where am I insane? Isn't it insane to see that we're divine light and say no to it? A lot of you are given those reflections too. Like, this is insane. Now Jesus has something to talk to us about. When we see and admit, this is insane to be light and say no to light. Let's ask the light, is this insane? To be infinite, unchanging being and just give everything over to the changing. Abdicate all creative power, expression of divinity to a thought. See if the light has any interest in turning over all of itself to a thought. Is it even possible for divine light? Does divine light hear a thought and run? We're hearing our own thoughts and wanting to run. When we feel like we want to run, we're believing thoughts. More code. Here comes the Jesus decode. When we feel like we want to run, what we're running from is ourself. Is there any place in the divine light to run? Divine light doesn't know what running is. Infinite light of being. It just is. I feel like I run. I desire an experience of running from myself. Decode, Jesus decode. Because that's what's appearing. I feel like I want to run from myself. And I accept my holiness instead of running from myself. I accept my holiness instead of suffering, grief, and loss, and insanity. We can ask him, Jesus, you mean this is just accepting what I am right now? See that Jesus never asks us to change anything other than the decision to deny ourselves all that's given by the Father, the light. Talk to Jesus and ask him, because we all can talk to him. Jesus. He's merely saying, give up the idea. We're fighting to keep ideas in play. It's like holding a bunch of spinning plates at once and insisting that we're a bunch of spinning plates. And then we feel dizzy. Why am I feeling dizzy? Jesus is going to say, just put the plates down. Put the plates down. Put all these busy thoughts that we're trying to hold in the thought cloud of suffering and grief and loss and anger. Anger because I'm not awake yet. I'm not awake yet. I've been working on this. Ask whose voice that is. Whose voice is that saying I'm not awake yet? Whose voice is saying, I've been really looking at this with you? No, the light just is. The light's not saying, I've been looking, I'm really looking at everything. Who's involved? When we start saying, okay, now Jesus is telling me this and I need to change that, that's who's listening. That's when we're really listening. Really, really listening. So it's not an opinion anymore. It's, this is what I heard. This is what I was willing to look at. This is what I saw. I see, I'm deciding not for love, not for light, not for infinite being. Here's where I'm seeing that I'm not choosing infinite being, and I'm willing to see it another way. Father, my holiness is yours. Let me rejoice in it. Am I willing to rejoice in holiness? That's the question. And if Jesus, if you hear the Jesus no, just say, okay, show me where I'm not willing to rejoice in my holiness. I'm willing to see the desire to not rejoice in holiness. And just look at it with them. Let the energy bubble up, and so it's not, becomes an experience, constant experience to be out of holiness, seemingly. Father, my holiness is yours. Let me rejoice in it, and through forgiveness be restored to sanity. Through the miracle, through the washout of the desire to be anything but light. I'll be anything of light to wash through the delusions and see clearly that without our brother, we cannot see what the delusions are. That's why our brother's the gift. And our brother is the reflection in our mind of Jesus, who will hold as the light. As we project and pretend like our brother is the devil. That our brother's here to attack us, to take heaven away. The only way out is to accept that decision to say no. To accept, yes, I have been making that decision to say no to myself with this divine light. I accept that. That's all he's saying. He's not saying you don't have to accept that the world's coming to the end. You don't have to accept pain. You don't have to accept suffering. You don't have to accept things exactly as they are in pain and suffering. No, accepting things exactly as they are is only accepting divine light. Because things are only, is there only divine infinite light here? What is? Rejecting what is accepting pain, suffering. What is not is accepting pain, suffering. Jesus is not asking for that. Ask the light, are you asking me to accept pain and suffering? No. Who's accepting it? It's a decision in mind to accept it as reality. Thus, he gives the means forgiveness, miracles, the greatest balm. See the power that a miracle that has, that no pill, can a pill ever carry the power of a miracle? We would be satisfied with pills and tonics. I was just noticing that marijuana is just about to be approved in Mexico. Now, there was a time I would have said, not that I've really never smoked or anything, sound like Clinton. That's innocence too. Even if you smoke, it's innocence. Just ask the divine light about it. Is this truly helpful? If I were to smoke marijuana, would that be helpful? And see if the light puts its thumb up. But in the play of consciousness, see, to have drugs be legalized would have been a big deal. It's like, yeah, why not? I mean, this is just the problem in the world. We need drugs to be legalized. We're happy because drugs are legalized. Why are we happy about drugs being legalized? Let's look at that. Because there's a belief of limitation. There's a belief that not having marijuana, somehow we're not free. Trapped by a belief. Trapped by a limited belief that marijuana is the means to freedom. Ask the light, is smoking marijuana a means to freedom? Is the light calling for marijuana for freedom? Now, the light doesn't, it's not going to, if we smoke, is the light judging that? Because see, no error. We can only go in when we feel an urge for something and ask, what's it for? What would marijuana be for? What's the first thing that comes to mind? I want to relax. So now there's a belief that cannabis, the chemical, cause and effect. That chemical does something, and here's the effect of it. So we just fell asleep in cause and effect. That divine being, does infinite light need marijuana to relax? Let's just ask that question. See, it's a way to stay asleep, these things. The spirit doesn't judge them good or bad. It's just a snooze button. Ask the light that. We can all hear Jesus. Is it any time Jesus advised taking drugs? He might say a stepping stone, but if you already see your light, what need do you have for it? Any drugs, once you recognize that you're light and accept it. See, the light doesn't go around. Is the light feeling like it's needing a toke or or a cigarette, or it doesn't judge it. We don't judge it. See no error. Just see that the light is where we need to find out what's it for. What's marijuana for? What's a cigarette for? What's drinking a cup of coffee for? What do we believe about that experience it's given us? And Jesus was talking to me about the addiction to coffee. I don't drink. I don't drink it, but he just a couple of days ago, I don't know why coffee came up, but he was, telling me it's another belief of cause and effect in consciousness. If I listen to people talk about it, beings, this is how we learn. We can just listen carefully out there. We're not judging it. We're just going, where's the belief in consciousness about what coffee does or does not do? Cause and effect. I can't be without my cup of coffee this morning. Jesus is not saying taking everything away. He's just saying, see what it's for. See if what we truly are getting is what we're getting from any object. We're letting ourselves be owned by the idea of what an object is and what it does. We're denying that peace, that we have infinite power to be at peace. I need coffee to settle me down, or I don't know what those other things are that people say. They settle me down. I get jittery if I don't have coffee. See how powerful our minds are, is to take an object like coffee. In the light of divine being, does coffee do anything? Really? And let's ask the light. Is the light impacted by coffee? These are good things to ask because we don't question them. We just assume. Jesus doesn't say no coffee for you necessarily. He might. If he says it, he might say it because it's helpful to look at the beliefs below coffee, marijuana, any kind of drug, ayahuasca. Just look as what's it for? What do I believe this magic? See the code in magic. Like some beings talking about headache medication not working or drugs not working anymore. That's because we no longer believe it. The only way it appeared to be working before is that there was a belief, the subconscious mind, that it would, the placebo. So we're just looking to see what placebos we're using constantly and just asking Jesus to guide us through seeing this is a placebo. We're so convinced that we kill the moment, we kill the light. See, notice like if you don't have a cup of coffee look at drug addiction. It's a perfect example. Okay, I haven't had that drug. So your whole focus becomes on that. My day's ruined. I feel terrible. I'm going to get a headache. See how the ego plans around these cause and effect events. So we just look at it directly. Like I said, Jesus may or may not guide you to stop drinking coffee, or I just asked them, would you ever give that as guidance? Let's just ask the light if it would ever give coffee as guidance. Well, just drink it, enjoy it, but see that it's not doing anything. It's really being trapped in the idea that coffee actually does something. That's a problem. Coffee itself is just another liquid. But it's interesting because I noticed that this was for me, when I was talking to the guys in prison, a lot of alcohol related addiction, drug, it was all drug. Most of them are all drug addiction, from drug addiction reflection. And I was just noticing, I was thinking, I was talking to him, I said, look at this. If I had 2 glasses with clear liquid in them, see how we're owned by things. We're owned by things. 2 glasses, and all you'd have to say, even if they both had water, and all I'd have to say is, and this one over here has vodka. This is vodka. Do you see how all of a sudden the mind goes, oh, all the things that would come up about being in a prison setting, and you got 1 glass of vodka, and you got one glass of water, and just saying that and think about what, yeah, this has vodka in it. Like how we're attached just to the thought of one liquid being different from another liquid, and how powerful our minds are. Both having water. This is the power of the mind. To make one have a different taste. To fool ourselves because we want to play like vodka actually does something. It'll make me feel what? Relaxed, or whatever the belief is. Then it follows through in consciousness. The big placebo effect. Do we really want to live in placebo, or do we want to live as we are, divine infinite light, controlled by attraction of repulsion, bing, 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 like a little ping pong ball? Just want to be as we are. You start seeing that's exhausting. Duking it out in our minds with thoughts. You see how the obsession, it's the obsession. Now it becomes an obsession. Okay, now how am I going to get a drink? How am I going to get that coffee? It's always a future, because when I finally have the cup of coffee, I don't want to pick just some coffee. That's just what's arising right now. That's why we need to go with the light and let Jesus say, am I addicted to the cause and effect of whatever it is? Ice cream sundaes. It can be. Do I value that experience more than I value divine light? That's the only question. If we're interested in peace right now, you might be surprised. And, I've heard people say, they were addicted to alcohol or whatever, and 20 years later, they can just sit down and have a glass of wine and they're fine, because it's all in the mind. It's all in the mind. And once the mind releases the belief that it actually does something, you can sit down and have a cup of coffee or whatever it is. But it's the belief you're going to have withdrawal symptoms, that you're going to suffer. It's the desire. It's not the coffee that's doing it. It's not the wheat that's doing it. It's the decision in mind to go, okay, I want to have an experience in which I believe this thing does something to me. And thus we forgive that we like coffee or whatever we want it to be free. And then we can sit down and have a cup of coffee, and it's like, okay, if we have a coffee, it's good. If we don't have it today, we don't. We're not glued. We didn't staple ourselves to an object. So it's decode. I have to have a cup of coffee. I am deciding to have an object own me. That's what that is. I'm deciding to have an experience where an objective experience owns me. My holiness is part of me and also part of you. And what can alter holiness itself? What can alter infinite light? Can coffee, marijuana, any drug alter what's infinite light that we see right here? Can those experiences in any way tell us who we are? That's the light. If we know we're light already, how do those experiences enhance who we are? They're actually fear of not looking to see that you're already light. They're a means used by the ego not to just look and say, wait, the light's already here. Regardless if I have coffee or anything, happiness is here. Regardless of any objective experience. That's why it's helpful to have guidance and follow Jesus on it, because he'll reveal where we've stapled ourselves to objective experience. Then we can just be in the celebration of infinite joy. My holiness is part of me and also part of you, being same and one with the Father, you with a capital Y. And what can alter holiness itself? And that's the beautiful thing that we look at in these light circles. Infinite light. Is infinite light ever altered? The light of divine being and honesty of God. Can infinite light be altered? See that it can't, and celebrate. That's the celebration. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you. Amen.